facts. So we find ourselves in a bifurcated society that is growing more divisive all the time, with a belief structure that one camp or the other has to be wrong.
That's the point I made. Each choice people make is valid.
Well, the hardest choices in life have no single answer.
Yeah.
But whatever it is that you're facing, the most challenging moments of your life don't have a clear yes or no, black or white, up or down. They're always existing in shades of gray. And so the public forum is allowed to suss out those grays so that we can figure out what's best for the individual or what's best for the collective within the grays. But if you go and bring forth a point or an argument that exists somewhere in those state of gray, and the immediate response is discriminatory or accusatory, or some form of banishment or censorship, then the public discourse shuts down, and the fabric of a free liberal democracy is now being challenged. The very fabric, the essence of what's brought us as humans to this space has been oriented around the ability to share thoughts and to be able to exchange those thoughts with others who may not agree with them, but are willing to open up the discussion with the thoughts of others. And so if you're being demonized for having thoughts that differ from their thoughts, and you're not, and you're being punished for it, it's as if you're like your adjunct professor, she was fearful of speaking up. It's the single greatest indication of a breakdown in society. The bigger question around it, which we do not have to explore, it's just where my mind has been, is the why. Why is this happening? We're aware that it's happening, and we've all been experiencing it now it's been intensifying over the years. But why? At the beginning of your career, if you had sent out an email to 400 colleagues, it's crazy when somebody drops off the call, the frames all move around. I'm like, wait, I'm looking at Chris. No, he went down here. It's like Hollywood.
Shuffle.
It's like Hollywood Squares. I know, I gotta go down here.
Well, it's just you, because I don't get shuffling.
And so the why, at some point you'll be called into when the effects, when you process and reconcile the effects that you're experiencing personally, as it sounds like you went through a tough few days, and then you move through it, and you're standing in your truth and the virtues of self, right? You can compromise yourself and feel okay about being in a state of compromise for a few days, but that vibration carries with you forever, because you'll reflect back and be like, wow, I compromised here and I compromised here and I compromised, and you wind up, you're like, geez, I compromised my whole life. You can stand in your truth and be like, holy shit, I'm under fire. And that can be a difficult moment, but as the years go by, your courage will have carried you into a more beautiful space, and you'll carry the vibration with you with a greater degree of love and compassion for self and other self by virtue of standing in that space of truth. It's the vibration that carries forward, right? You stood up for yourself. You'll feel good. You feel good about it now. You'll feel good about it as the months and years go by. Because this is Chris, and this is how Chris felt. And Chris took a moment to share that he couldn't sit idly as others were being discriminated against, and a two-tier society was forming all around him in a liberal democracy that's supportive of an academic institution that's supposed to allow for freedom of speech. It just didn't feel right. So let's go ahead and say something, because if it doesn't feel right, then we should talk about it.
So the provost wrote to the group as well to respond. The provost is like the chief academic officer for the university, basically second in charge. And he was actually very empathetic and encouraged open discussion. But he also wants to talk to me personally. So I have a phone call scheduled with him next week. I'm not sure exactly where he's going to be coming from, but it'll be interesting to I'm just going to ask him, what can I do for you? You know?
Yeah, give him, just as you desire a forum to be open and communicative, give him that same forum. You know, like receive him, receive him with no guardedness, no defensiveness, just like what's on your mind. Like, thank you for your email. I'm glad you reached out. It's nice to have support for open discourse. what are you thinking? And he might be like, oh, it's a sensitive subject, or let's not push whatever it is, just receive him.
Yep.
Just receive him.
I admire you for speaking out, Chris, and then it gave other people courage to do the same.
Yeah.
So you're kind of
Thank
the
you.
lead. Yeah, you seem to be the lead on that. And that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Because I'm the opposite. I would not speak up. I've always had this issue. I had a hard time with that. So, but hearing someone do it first will give me the courage to do it. So
Mhm.
that's awesome that you did it.
Well, I had some encouragement. I see a chiropractor every 3 weeks, but he's also my therapist in a way. And I asked him about what he thought about it, and he really encouraged me to speak my truth, because his thoughts are in alignment with mine, and he's always been very supportive, and he helped me through my divorce, and so I consider him a close friend, even though we don't like hang out or anything. So and my girlfriend helped me too. I ran it by her. So I had lots of people really that
Mhm.
pushed me forward. So I'm really grateful for them too.
It's easier to go forward when you have the support, but that doesn't
Yeah.
mean it's not hard to do when it happens. So I'm glad you have support behind you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Allan, I still remember when you told me that, and I explained to you that I have a hard time talking to people and saying what I feel, that as long as there's truth to it and that you say it in a respectful way, that's helped me a lot, actually. And I'm actually teaching that to my kids because
Yeah,
they're like me. So
you never have to worry about sharing the truth.
yeah. And I've been put in situations where it's like very difficult, very touchy subjects, but as long as it's truthful and I'm
Yeah.
compassionate, it's okay.
So
And the way they handle it is what they have to deal with. That was very powerful what you told me, and it's helped me so much.
I'm glad to hear it. It just
My girls too.
so they're actually slightly different conversations. When something is truthful, the vibration of truth is just incredibly high. You can just express what's truthful, right? The way in which you express it is important, but the truth is the truth, and you don't have to be so fearful of how the truth is going to be received, because it's the obligation, as you said, the responsibility of the individual receiving truth to process what comes up for them, right? What Chris is sharing is more of an opinion, right? He vocalized his views on a contentious social issue. But if it's coming, so in this case, it's not whether it's truthful or not, like it's truthful that this is what he feels, but really the qualifier is more the vibration by which Chris communicates. So if he's open to the dialogue and he brings forth an opinion which is articulate and considerate and it comes from a loving space, which is the desire to care for the needs of others, then the opinion can be healthily shared without worry. Right? You can see it all the time when you see somebody's opinion online, it's coming from that hateful space or they're seeking conflict. Right? They may have a very valid view, but because the vibration is so low, the opinion's not going to be it's going to create conflict. Chris's intention wasn't to be in a state of conflict. But oftentimes you see in public discourse, people are just, they desire the conflict. They provoke the low vibration of frustration or anger or animosity. And so in the context of fact, you can just share fact and then monitor the method by which you share it. In the context of opinion, you have to check the vibration behind the opinion that you're feeling. Okay, and that.
So if you
Go ahead.
So if you are delivering truth to somebody in more just a neutral space, possibly with love, is that enough vibration to raise the vibration of the conversation?
Yeah.
Or can you like send out energy from your heart space around the person you're talking to kind of, I don't know, send love to the person?
Your vibration is automatically influencing the vibration. You're always, like, even this conversation now, like we're going to feel differently at the end of the conversation than we did at the beginning of it. And you know that the
Right.
vibration is a positive one if you're looking forward to the discussion, if it brings joy, if you feel an expansion of consciousness, like which is you're seeing things in a better light before, different from how you were seeing it before. If you have those aha moments where you're like, wow, that makes sense and that makes sense, it's a reawakening of a knowing that's already resident within you. And that's a pure indication that you're moving in the right space. We give our human mind too much credit, like, oh, I figured this out. It's like, no, 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 you just awoke in what you already knew, most of the time. And so in the context of you being of high vibration and bringing forth truth to another, if you're able to stay in that space, you're automatically a benefit to the individual. They may have too much guardedness, or they may be too wounded to properly engage in the conversation. A lot of people were traumatized by being locked down for months, and they were bombarded with imagery all day long that was telling them that they were going to die if they walked outside without a face mask on. And so now the moment has come where they're certain that if everybody gets vaccinated, we'll all be safe. And you have somebody that says, hey guys, I don't want to discriminate against those that aren't vaccinated. And they're like, fuck you, don't put me back in lockdown. You know, screw you, I don't want to wear a face mask again because you don't want to get vaccinated. Their mind is not seeing things clearly, and the vibration of trauma and fear and anxiety is still so present that it doesn't allow them to be healthily engaged in the vibration which is present, even if it's a loving one. Okay, and that's where you have to be conscientious, not just of your vibration, but of your audience. And so I actually was in a discussion with somebody, and I sent them some talking points around what I believe is occurring now. And they responded, and I said, give me a couple of days, I'll respond to your email. And the response I got was, I'm not interested. I don't need to hear your answer. And this is actually a relative. And in that moment, I said, I wish you love and light. I will not bring forth my views if it's your request not to receive them. I wish you love and light, and I hope it all works out for you. This is somebody that would vaccinate her children if they had an infant vaccine available for COVID. And that's her journey. And so that's okay. And so you recognize that you do your best to bring forth the right vibration, because your journey is always one of emanating that vibration. And then you're conscientious of the energy around you. And if the energy around you is confrontational and conflictual and not interested, you wish them love and light. You send them on their way. There is a profound bifurcation of consciousness unfolding on the planet right now. And the planet is moving from a third density to a fourth density planet. We have been talking about the ascension for generations, and it is upon us. And there will be those that will ascend with the planet whose vibration will be compatible with a much higher vibratory space. And there are those that are locked into a fear-based consciousness that will not ascend. There is no other way. This is how the mechanism unfolds. This is regarded in some circles as the battle of the law of one, because it articulates it very clearly. You have a service to self and a service to others' energy, and the vibration that is dominant between those two groups is actually dividing. It's creating a battle line, if you will, that's dividing the groups. And the more one group moves into consciousness, the greater the gap occurs, because the other group is stuck in usually a fear-based or a selfish-based space. This is
Allan,
the intensification that we're going to witness. Go ahead.
Wouldn't those who are of a higher vibration, so back to that David Hawkins graph that you had sent us, so say those who are vibrating at a love or joy, enlightenment,
Sure.
wouldn't they be able to pull those who are at 3D up? I mean, isn't that the purpose?
So it is possible. You have to think of where you fall in that spectrum. Somebody who is all the way down in the shame, guilt, and fear space would need incredible exposure to somebody who is an enlightened, or which none of us are truly enlightened, but I mean, within reason, but maybe in a loving space. They would need to desire tremendous exposure to that vibration, and that over time could potentially pull them forward. And I can tell you that for every one email that comes from someone like Chris, who says, hey guys, let's not mistreat others just because they chose not to get vaccinated. There's 1,000 hours a month of media content that is streaming through their phones and their computers and their televisions that is yelling at them to discriminate against people based on their medical status. Mm-hmm. It's a remarkable battle that's underway, and the amount of love that they would need to counteract the amount of fear that they're receiving, they're not getting it. I can tell you that they're not getting it. Unless they're on these type of calls all day long, they're not getting it. And they're not on these calls.
Right.
They're more comfortable watching the fear porn than they are engaging in these open discourse conversations. That's why they attacked Chris to begin with.